Vaping is in the news for all the wrong reasons as lung-related injuries are rising.
There's been a huge surge of high schoolers using e-cigarettes or vaping. E-cigarettes, though, carry a number of health risks.
I would say that we have kids that are using it to ingest THC products. We have kids that are using it to ingest products with nicotine in them.
It's potentially fatal, and no one really knows what the root cause is. From our point of view, at that point, doing nothing was just not a viable option.
As far as high school fads, which often come and go, this one seems to be sticking, and there's a lot of concern about it.
The governor's office stated that 61 cases of potential vaping-related lung disease have been reported in Massachusetts alone.
According to the 2016 Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, 26% of Needham High School students reported using e-cigarettes or vaporizers during their lifetime.
The Food and Drug Administration, as we know, is the overarching governmental entity that in medicine regulates everything that is put inside the human body, everything that's taken out of the human body, and everything that's done to the human body from a medical standpoint. And vaping and juuling is not under or doesn't fall under any of those regulatory processes at this point in time.
You could be a fourth grader, you could be 10 years old, and you can vape and it can taste good.
For every one adult that's using an e-cigarette in Massachusetts, we know 6 youth have gotten their hands on them and are using them.
How young would be someone who's too young that you wouldn't sell to them?
15 or younger.
Everything is, if young kids are getting exposed to vape, that means they're getting exposed to so many different things.
You know, how many of these people have been hitting a pot and suffering the effects like tomorrow?
You can hit your vape in the bathroom at school. You can hit the vape in the bathroom of your house while you're having dinner with your family, and nobody knows that you're smoking.
It's a different thing than smoking. Smoking was just about dead. There's a stigma attached. Everyone knows it's bad for you. It's clear. And it does not taste very good. In order for you to want to start smoking, you got to really want to start smoking, because Marlboro Reds don't taste like blueberry watermelon. Anyone can vape.
Literally, the industry is the wild, wild west.
I've had this business for almost a year and a half, since June 14th of 2018, actually. Well, I've had a lot of research into this business before I started, because it was the way I looked at it was one of the fastest growing industry actually in the States, and that combines THC and recreational, medicinal, and CBD. So it was just a great opportunity. I was looking forward to start.
Student athletes get suspended if they're caught vaping. It puts a whole group of people in a very difficult position, and it spoils the hard work of a lot of people. We started to see a dramatic rise in that, and it started to get my attention, and I really started to think that something was not right with this.
So you noticed it becoming more and more popular?
Absolutely, and I've noticed a high demand for it, and that's exactly what kind of pushed me a little bit to pursue that specific industry.
What was the general demographic of vaping customers you received?
Well, that's a very tricky question, to be honest with you, and that depends. It has to do more with where you geographically located, I would say. And what I've noticed up north, I'll be fair, I would say it's 60-40, 40 over 25, and 60 and in between 18 at that time when I opened all the way up to like 25, and then the age has increased in 2019 to 21. So it has a pretty decent percentage of young customers, I would say.
So what exactly is it you do?
I sell marijuana products like THC cards and marijuana.
So what's the usual like demographic of people you distribute these carts to? Like what's the age range like? Is it mostly males, mostly females? What's that like?
It's like half and half.
What would you say for the age range of people that usually?
Age range is like 16 to 30.
What's the main reason you sell these carts?
To help people out that can't get it from other people, and so people don't get like finessed from people that want to charge them too much money.
I did grow up as the child of two smokers, and my dad suffered a heart attack when he was 37 years old. He had all of the valves in his heart bypassed when he was 47 and a stroke when he was 51. So it's something I feel very passionately about from a personal perspective. And we just have seen the dramatic increase of use of these devices by our youth, and we really wanted to do everything in our power to stop it while we could.
Have you ever used vape products, or would you?
I have, and I've been a smoker, a vapor, and I quit smoking and vaping. Even though I have a vape shop, I'm not a big fan because I've always wanted to quit smoking cigarettes. So by the time I opened the business, I've already quit smoking cigarettes, so I didn't need it, and I didn't want to get the habit as well. But yeah, I did.
They were marketed at kids. I mean, adults don't need bubblegum flavor, popcorn, pineapple, whatever you name it. Over 8,000 flavors on the market between all the manufacturers of these devices, and they were clearly aimed at kids, just like the targeting was aimed at kids in the 40s, 50s, and 60s when traditional combustibles first became popular.
Gee, we ought to do something, Fred. Okay? How's about taking that? I got a better idea. Let's take a Winston break. That's it! Winston is the one filter cigarette that delivers flavor 20 times a pack. Winston's got that filter blend. Yeah, Fred.
The flavored originally were there just to help you find a great alternative, more enjoyable way to quit smoking cigarettes. Backfired on kids again.
I have Sunday Driver, Wedding Cake, Purple Punch, Sour Tangy, OG Kush, Banana Kush, Sour Diesel, Sherbet, Strawberry Cough, and Watermelon OG.
Using like child sort of flavors that are more like
mango, cucumber. What else? There's Fruit Loops, exactly. Cereal. So yeah.
One of the statistics that's shocking is that for every one adult that's using an e-cigarette in Massachusetts, we know 6 youth have gotten their hands on them and are using them. And their increase year over year in usage by teens and even now in middle school has increased dramatically. And that's by self-reporting. So the numbers we have, we even think are low because obviously not everyone is going to want to self-report that they're taking part in this kind of behavior.
Mostly the people that want them are like 30-year-olds that like have like problems, like sleeping problems, or they want to get through the day at school, or like, and then kids at school that want to use them in school, pretty much.
And then there's the stigma of, I don't want to get caught. Let's face it, the best part about vaping is you can do it anywhere, anytime, any place, and you're not going to get caught, or at least that's what people think.
You know, I can be in here cleaning and keep working. And
you know, when I studied in the library, I don't need to go out for a cigarette anymore.
So if you all of a sudden can, somebody wants to smoke, THC, and they can have it in a vaping product, well, they're gonna, and they think they're not gonna get detected. What keeps them from bringing it to school? What keeps them from doing it in the bathrooms? And so then of course there's a part of like, how do we test it? How do we know it was? So unless they even just admit to it, it makes it very hard.
So my name is Dr. Brad Harris. I have a medical degree as opposed to a PhD like a lot of the professors here. And I've been teaching here at FSU. This is my 3rd year here. My first career was as a practicing physician, where I practiced primary care medicine in the community for about 15 years. The other thing that I think was really attractive for the vapes for young people, and I don't know how much this was really advertised, is that you can sneak a vape. You can hit your vape in the bathroom at school. You can hit the vape in the bathroom of your house while you're having dinner with your family, and nobody knows that you're smoking. And I think that also is one of the things that attracted a younger demographic. These are, you know, older teenagers, people in their young 20s. They don't want their parents to know what they're up to. They can sneak it. So it's one of the things that I think made vaping so popular among younger people.
It's not a cessation tool, as it was told to us that it was. Not in my opinion. It's being marketed directly to teenagers, and then all this online stuff that we see with kids doing smoke rings and all these other things, all promote it. It seemed serious enough, like where it was an epidemic, and I don't think there's anybody who can debate whether or not there was an epidemic of kids using these vaping products. So to me, to take a time out, sure, I think it probably would keep some kids from starting.
The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has a website that updates information as it relates to the vaping-related lung illness. One of the things that you can learn on the CDC website is that they've renamed the illness EVALI, E-V-A-L-I. E stands for e-cigarettes, V stands for vaping products, and A-L-I is associated lung injury. So e-cigarette and vaping product, associated lung injury, is the name of the disease.
So I firsthand was affected by, I got sick from one of the black market cartridges. So for about like 2 weeks I had a congestion in my chest, very bad sinus infection. So I had to go to the doctor and get like multiple medications for that. Very fatigued, so that was not a fun couple of weeks. And then just looking around at like some of these kids that I see with like the Juul pods and whatever, the kids that I work with that are still in high school, not 18, and they're all addicted running around. Like, who's got the Juul pod? I'm like, this is not what we wanted at all.
When we're looking at the biopsy specimens, we're looking at the nature of the tissue injury. And what the nature of the tissue injury shows us is that it looks like it's a chemical burn. So when we're looking at cells from the lining of the airways, or we're looking at cells from the alveoli themselves, the air sacs themselves, they look like they've been burned by a chemical or burned by a toxic fume. So there were a couple descriptives that were used in that study, and they all had the same terminology in them, and that was toxic tissue injury or chemical burn injury.
My sense is that hopefully with what's happened recently, and been in the national news, even just this morning, where there was a young person, I believe 17 years old, who had a lung transplant, just absolutely non-functioning lungs, and moved to the top of a national transplant database. I hope that number is going down.
The vitamin E issue, as far as we know, has risen with tainted THC products. In Massachusetts, the products that were used for vaping, THC, were heavily regulated by our Cannabis Control Commission. Our ban did not discuss cannabis at all. It was never part of our plan to discuss cannabis because of the regulation that were put into place that were restricting the ability of youth to get their hands on them. Additionally, I think it was important to note that that vitamin E claim and a lot of the claims that these products that folks are ODing on and getting sick off of are illicit products is not necessarily accurate, because we know that of the 2 of 3 deaths in Massachusetts, at least 2, if not all 3, were from people who were vaping nicotine.
So we have the tissue study that was done at the Mayo Clinic, shows us that we have chemical burns. And then we have this BAL study, the bronchoalveolar lavage study, which is showing us that vitamin E is what the CDC is calling a chemical of concern. So it's suspicious, but we still haven't tied together causality. Clinical studies had already shown that vaporized vitamin E is damaging to lung tissue. We actually knew that before this even started. So we knew we can use vitamin E safely if taken orally or applied topically, but if inhaled and in a vaporized form, we know that it causes damage. And now we're seeing that sort of to the extreme in this vaping-related lung injury. So vitamin E is used as a cutting agent, meaning it increases the volume.
What kind of person do you think would put this vitamin E into a cart?
Somebody that's trying to make more money in the long run and making it seem like they're a good person because they're probably lowering the price so they can make more money in the long run. When you put the vitamin E, they probably take out some of the dab oils and put it into other carts. So they make their carts cheaper, but more dangerous.
How do you feel about the people that have been hospitalized by vapes and illegal THC products?
Well, that's. I mean, the question could be kind of split into because you can't just put it together somehow, in my opinion. Yeah. But the way they kind of put it, I mean, of course we feel bad, and it's not fair for those kids because they lack the education. They have a lot of exposure of things they didn't really know. That's one thing. At the same time, you can't blame one factor and just take it as a general factor for all the other factors that can cause such thing.
So the governor's temporary ban went into place on September 24th, and that is staying in place until December 11th when the Public Health Council can meet to promulgate regulations that are consistent with the intent of the law that was just signed in. So the e-cigarette ban will stay in effect fully until those regulations are promulgated. The differences between the governor's ban, he eliminated all e-cigarettes, and we're eliminating flavors. So we're still allowing for tobacco-flavored e-cigarette usage or nicotine-flavored e-cigarette usage. So folks will be still able to buy those things once the regulations are promulgated.
So what are your thoughts on the recent ban by Charlie Baker?
I think it's doing more harm than good because people are leaving the state to buy vape products and now they're selling them on the streets.
So how much warning did they give you before the ban was set in place?
The warning was technically less than an hour, I would say. It was just a state emergency. I literally joked about it. I felt like there was a nuclear wars going on in the country. Like a state emergency for what? And then literally it wasn't even an hour. Yes, unfortunately.
So within that hour, did you have to get rid of all your vaping products?
Well, it was a very shocking news, to be honest, and I didn't know what to do. It was like more of a joke to me at the beginning, and I was really, truly, tremendously surprised. And I waited. It was around 3 o'clock when I heard the news. Around 2 o'clock, I waited, and then 3 hours later, the Board of Health came in with the police, and they asked us to. They gave us a note and saying that we have to take it down. They didn't even give us an opportunity to wait till next day, or they didn't even give us a plan to manage.
It's unfortunate because people who are shop owners, you do feel bad that if they're making a living at selling these, and there's no question that that you feel bad for people who might have sincerely thought, hey, we're just selling a harmless product that is something that people want to do. So if in that piece, I recognize that piece of it. That said, this is an epidemic, and people could say that, it was black market, it was this or that. People don't want black market vaping products unless they start with what's being marketed to them over the counter, what they can buy at CVS or wherever they might go to get it. So to me, to call a timeout, a 4-month ban, was probably worthwhile. It at least brought to our attention that, hey, this thing is serious, and these things are actually killing people. And how long are we going to let that go until we actually do something about it?
The convenience stores, no matter what we legislate, always argue that we're trying to put them out of business. But as Massachusetts residents have quit smoking, and as people who smoke in Massachusetts have died, and our revenue from tobacco has decreased continually, convenience store profits have continued to increase.
So what exactly did the ban do?
The ban kind of reconstructed the whole and redemolished everything, basically. So the ban didn't do anything good, in my opinion. In my personal opinion, the ban took responsibility out of their environments that we live in, which is parents, Now they instead of educating, instead of knowing the major factor of the exposure, because if we look at the problem is not the cigarettes, the problem is not the vape, the problem is not the booze, the problem is actually it's the environment where we grew up from.
But I hope that the ban sort of serves a dual purpose of raising awareness, which I hope feeds back on educating kids in high school about just how bad it is.
I mean, I think the ban will create a legal market, and then kids need to ask, well, is it worth the money and the expense and the risk? I can't imagine that the answer is yes.
The cause is not the vape. The cause is basically exposure. And exposure, it's like, we're talking about schools, we're talking about parents, we're talking about a lot of stuff. If you get down a little bit deep into the actual problem, you'll understand it's not vape. It's more deeper than that. It's exposure. So how could you open a recreational dispensary in certain towns and you're not educating high school kids or school kids on that aspect of it? And then you come to me and tell me it's young kids. Everything is, if young kids are getting exposed to vape, that means they're getting exposed to so many different things. So it doesn't even make sense.
So what are the name brand vape cartridge products that use vitamin E?
Exotic cards, Supreme G cards, and the black tip TKO cards, because those are the ones that have the most problems in it. And the TKO ones, the black ones, you have to get specific black ones, because if it doesn't have TKO official at the bottom, they don't come from the TKO store.
Do you personally know every ingredient in the cartridges you distribute?
No, not every ingredient.
So the counterfeit vaping products that are out there now are high quality and meant to look a lot like ones that are legitimately manufactured.
The box, this is how you know it's real. It's like, it has the wrapping around it. So when you first get it, it'll be wrapped up. So then nobody can mess with it. That's how you know people don't mess with it. The wrapping on the paper, the box, it says TKO, and that's how you would know that you got it from the right person, because when you get them from the TKO company, they wrap them so that you can't take any out, you can't do anything wrong with them. There's a bubble right here, so if I turn it upside down, it won't move fast. And if it moves really fast going down, that just means it's not real. It'll literally have been all the way down here in 2 seconds. And that means something wrong's in there.
I wouldn't believe any individual who could tell me that by looking at the consistency of the oil or looking how the bubble moves inside, they can tell what's in there. That's just not something I would believe.
Vapes, they help people more than cigarettes do, to be honest. And cards, I feel like they're better to smoke than actual weed, because you actually know what kind of weed you're smoking, to relax yourself or what.
How would you feel if someone died using one of your cards?
Probably sympathetic and probably stop for a little bit at least.
I feel it was just more from the black market cartridges when it came to that. I never really had any issues with the legal ones or any of the products that I had used before. But all it takes is that one time.
But then again, you did say you can't vouch for every single ingredient in your products.
Yeah.
I would not at all trust a street vendor compared to the dispensary. It all comes down to this idea of quality control. Everything that's sold in a dispensary has a number on it. You can actually buy something from the dispensary, go to your home computer, type the number in, and see the testing that's been done on those products.
I think that they're going to continue selling vapes, and they're going to undo the ban in the states that they have it in and let people keep vaping. I think they're going to just do more research and make it healthier for people. The legal part, I think it helps in the long run when people, like, it doesn't help when it's illegal, but when it's legal, people don't get in that much trouble with it.
Do you think that Charlie Baker's 4-month vape ban was the proper response to these widespread cases?
Well, absolutely not, because there's a lot of things to do with it. First of all, as I said, there's so many factors. First of all, I mean, Charlie Baker have announced that vape are the major cause of illnesses and mysterious lung disease, what they called. The main reason is the exposure. It's how those kids are getting exposed to vape. And at the same time, you have a lot of different industry that it's really contributing to vape, which is THC and CBD. And everybody seeks those stuff as a medicinal form to heal certain things. So if you look at the 4-month span, it's basically just a quick way to get their hands on the industry, and that's the only way for them to do it. So I believe it's a political move. It's an Uncle Sam's move at the end of the day.
People have accused us of trying to push people back on traditional combustibles with this ban and being in the pockets of big tobacco.
I personally vape, and that's the only way that I was able to stop smoking cigarettes. So like for me, it's kind of a hindrance because I actually had to restart smoking cigarettes again because there was no way to buy vape products.
Well, let's face it. Big tobacco, the top 5 cigarette manufacturers in this country, have over a 90% market share in the e-cigarette industry because they had lost a new generation of kids. We were below 5% kids in Massachusetts smoking traditional combustibles, and they knew they needed a way to make up those lost profits. So they came up with the e-cigarette industry, and like I said, Big Tobacco owns over 90% of the e-cigarette industry. So they're the same. Big vape, big tobacco, hand in hand.
Do you see this as an economic or a health issue?
Both. More of a health issue for certain. At the end of the day, people's health impacts the economy, but we went at it from a health perspective for certain.
I disagree with the legal marijuana cartridges being banned. Those are gone through so much testing. I agree with the other one though. I mean, until we can figure out kind of a way to keep these out of kids' hands or whatever and keep people from getting sick, you might as well do something. I'd rather see somebody be proactive than reactive.
Could you speak more on that backlash you were talking about? That's just from companies?
Largely from the vape shop owners. A little bit from the convenience stores, but I think the convenience stores have kind of let it go for now. I guess some of these people invested their life savings, their 401ks into these vape shops.
So how has this ban affected your business over the last month?
Over the last month, I mean, I tell you, truly speaking, as far as numbers, my sales have dropped 80%, even though I have a smoke in a vape shop, but the whole traffic aspect of it have been destroyed.
But in my opinion, at the end of the day, whenever you open a business, there's an assumption of the risk. And these people went into a business selling something that had not been tested, had not been vetted, had not been approved, had not been anything. And at the end of the day, when you're putting something in your lungs that's not oxygen, it's going to cause damage. And so I think they saw the opportunity to make a quick buck, and now they think we're taking that away from them. So they're angry, and I get it, but I'm not worried about the vape shop owners per se. I am worried about the people who are imbibing these things. And additionally, they all talk about how many people they employ. Well, respectfully, those are likely minimum wage cashier jobs. And in the wonderful economy that we're in right now, we don't have enough people to do the jobs that are available. So we would hope that we would be able to get those folks in another job sometime soon. The owners, I understand, they're frustrated. They have a lease, they have rent to pay, but they assumed a risk, and they went into business selling a product that nobody knew anything about.
So how much of your inventory was vape before the ban?
My inventory, it's around 60 to 70% inventory is vape, and the toughest part, it's the juice that takes the major part of the inventory, and now again they bring it back, and the flavor is not going to be allowed, and those juices cannot be returned. So we're stuck with thousands of dollars of inventory.
If kids hooked on it, they're going to be hooked for life. So yes, and the flavoring was the way in which it was done. You have to remember, back in the day, cigarettes were also flavored. And in 2009, the FDA passed a ban on all flavors except mint menthol. And that mint menthol carve-out was given as a gift to big tobacco. So this is, again, it's exactly the same thing that they did with cigarettes when cigarettes were first burgeoning in the market.
I support the ban. I don't see what the value of it is.
Things that are marketed to you, sometimes there's deception involved. And educated people are aware of that. And so as you go along in life, really take a look at what it is that somebody is presenting you with and be able to make a really educated choice and decision.
We need to have some education, for God's sake. You have to tell kids, hey, listen, there's a dispensary here in town, especially in certain towns. There's a dispensary here in town. You have to understand, you're not allowed to buy those products till you're 21, but you have to educate them about the black market. You have to tell them what's the products. You have to let them know what's vitamin E when you vape it, what's hydrogen cyanide, what things can be used in a form of a vape or food, or it can be inhaled, that it's really dangerous to you. That's what education is all about. So
I hate to even say it, I'd rather see somebody smoke a cigarette, because we've at least known the studies. Like, you've got maybe 20 to 40 years before you start to see some effects of it, where, you know, how many of these people have been hitting a pod and suffering the effects like tomorrow.
We want them to know that big tobacco is no longer welcome here, and we're not going to let them take another generation of our children.
Eric Nelson has a story of a Brooklyn Park resident who suffered serious injuries because of vaping.
Go fast. Don't let me close my eyes. Don't let me fall asleep or I won't wake up.
Now, why did you say that?
Because I knew I was dying.
But hospital staff couldn't figure out why Seema couldn't breathe. 2 days later, doctors had to put her on a ventilator. Last month, 17-year-old Tristan Zofeld described how he spent 18 days in the hospital fighting for his life after vaping.
We're going to have to deal with the blowback for a while, because people aren't going to be able to stop immediately. So, and I don't think the kids really have any idea how addicted they are.
What we see with these vaping cases is a kind of severe chemical injury that I've never seen before in a tobacco smoker.